What's up, YouTube? It's ArtisanMc, and tonight's PMDM is about dysfunction and loneliness. What's going on, Dr. T? So, in a nutshell, it's been a really interesting day, and I'm just actually getting home. I'm sitting outside of my house right now recording this, but I wanted to get these thoughts down before I went inside and tried to lay it down for the night. It's been a full day. And I just finished out the day with a conversation with my mother on my grandmother and the family and some other shit. And one of the things that keeps ringing in my head right now is something Kevin said. So shout out to Kevin Samuels, that this world is not set up for single people to be alone. I have an 84-year-old grandmother living alone for the first time in her life because her husband died during the pandemic. I have a 63-year-old mother living alone because she chose to kick out her boyfriend. And kind of at odds with her mother. I have my 48, 49-year-old ass living and possibly be in that position later on. And I say all this, and if it comes out jumbled, just forgive me. It's fucking past midnight, and I'm just trying to process this whole bullshit that I was hearing today. Basically, what I'm seeing of my grandmother is my grandmother has become a shut in. And she's become an angry shut in because everybody is not checking on her. She's just there. She's just retired. And I saw her today, and I didn't like what I saw. I hadn't talked to her since Christmas, and sure enough, what is known for my nana is that if you did something that crossed her, you gonna hear some cussing. You gonna hear some motherfucking cussing first. So I hired my cousin, took it in stride, and still went to see her to help her with her situation that she had. But I didn't like the way my nana looked, and she's sad. Lost her husband, lost her aunt, really close together, in the house by herself, barely see, getting to losing her hearing, two replaced knees, walking on a cane. Not a good look. Not a good look. And the part that bothers me is she is in some ways alienated from the rest of the family because she is angry and has cursed the rest of the family. And I think that is, in some ways, on the rest of the family's part, petty to still hold that against her. It's like, when I see how much time people waste in fucking relationships and familial relationships, and they just stay mad for so fucking long about, to me, would be little shit, right? But to them, it's really something close to the bone, really emotional, really something they hold on to, right? But they can't let that shit go. And I ended my call with my mother talking about that, about letting shit go. Because I told her it's one thing to say people need to let something go. It's a whole nother thing to show them how to do that shit. And you have to understand where it comes from to be able to do that and how it develops. And during the conversation with my mother, the conversation basically spanned 3 generations of our family: me, her, and my grandmother, and my great grandmother. So it's probably for 4 generations, and what they dealt with, and what kind of trauma and dysfunction and fear was passed down generation after generation. And I have to tell my mother why I behave the way I behave is to keep that shit from happening with me. How hard I go against that shit to make sure I never repeat that shit, to break the link in that damn chain, to not be that next gear that gets ground down. And in some ways, it's sad to see people that I love that may not always think so favorably of me complaining about the very things that they have actually done to me, but it was done to somebody else, done to them by somebody else. And I have to point out, oh, that's funny. That's exactly what happened to me. You did exactly the same thing. And to hear that silence after that is said, when they realize, oh, I did. Done that about 4 times tonight between the conversation with 2 people. Like they get so wrapped up in their emotions about shit that they don't think the rest of the way through. Perfect example. My cuss out from my grandmother was because I hadn't talked to her since Christmas. What I pointed out to her is that shit, I work 7 days a week. I I haven't had a day off in the last what 15? When do I have time to call anybody? And then she thought about it. Then was like, oh, you're right. Yeah, you own a business. That's right. Like, yeah. Why did it take me saying that for you to think it? Did the same shit with my mother. She wants to talk about people cursing her and talking bad about her kids, and why they fell out. And I said, I know exactly how you felt. Remember that day you was telling me about my kids? And I drove to your house because you hung up the phone on me, cussing me out, telling me how terrible my kids were? Yeah, yeah, that shit happened. You did the same shit. You can't sit up here and be all butt hurt for something that you actually participated in doing. Yeah. What's up, BTM? I see you in here. It's not lack of critical thinking skills. It's just they refuse to do it. They're so goddamn stubborn sometimes. They were it's stubborn to the fucking truth. Like Jesus. Like, and yes, Dr. T, they are hard conversations sometimes. This was not a hard conversation. It wasn't hard. This is the funny part for me, Dr. T. It's not hard for me to say this shit. It's not hard for me to say it because it's true. I don't have a problem saying the truth to people. I really don't. That's why I'm quiet most of the time. I'm not trying to crush anybody's world like that. Believe what the fuck you want to believe. But sometimes you need that, that truth serum, that sin eater to spit that shit back in your face and let you know this is the poison that I've ingested and transmuted into the water of life, which is the truth. Take this and go forth. One of the things I heard tonight that made me call my mother after I left my grandmother to talk to her, and this is for you, Dr. T, is about a history and a passed down fear of violence in relationships and how my grandmother has seen this in her day. She's done it in her own day as an adult. My mother saw it as a child. She did it in her life as an adult. I saw it as a child. I didn't do it in my life. The only difference between the three of us is that I'm the only male. I am. I'm the first male in that line. That line of being the oldest child, oldest grandchild. I'm the first male. And I think that's why the rational or logic part comes into that of saying, this is stupid. I'm not doing that shit. Because I look at it more in what makes sense and what doesn't, as opposed to, well, this is how I emotionally felt. True enough, you emotionally felt that. Where did it come from? How do you think that other person felt? They were dealing with shit too. One part of my conversation with my mother was trying to explain to her why somebody of my grandmother's age, 80 something, would not talk to a therapist or want medication. Because that ain't their generation for that shit. That's not how they deal with stuff. That's not how they were taught to deal with stuff from the people that came before them. Yeah, Dr. T, it is a familiar scenario. I'm sure you have seen this a lot. And that's the thing, is that these two women are growing older alone in houses by themselves. And what I told my mother is I can't look at my grandmother and see her walking on that cane and not see my mother. Because my mother has a cane too in her 60s. And trying to, in some ways, impress upon her that you need to let some of that shit go with your mother and just try to be there with each other. Because it's not about who's in front and who needs attention. It's making sure that you can be there for each other as fucking family. That's supposed to be more important. Now, I don't say all this to condemn my mother or shame her or no shit like that, or my grandmother. They are just people living out their fucking lives in the best way they know how. But I thought about that shit when I'm talking to my mother and she's dumping all this stuff on me that I didn't fucking ask about my grandmother. I didn't fucking ask. I didn't want to know. I didn't need to know. But it's dumped on me. And hearing how she cannot be the dumping ground for all the stuff that my grandmother wants to dump on her. I'm like, you're doing this shit to me. Who the fuck am I going to offload this shit onto? It's 1 o'clock in the goddamn morning right now. I wouldn't dump this shit on some lady if I was seeing her. No, I don't want to hear that shit. And so it's complaining about something but doing it at the same time. So here I am dumping this shit off on y'all a little bit. I'll consider dumping it off on y'all. I do consider it just airing it out and putting it out of my head and out of the universe. Because I told my mother something tonight is that the way I deal with people, I sleep very comfortably at night. I sleep very comfortable at night because I know I'm not doing anything grimy to anybody. I'm not. I'm not wasting a lot of time lying to folks. I'm not doing anything fucked up to people. And if I cuss somebody out, they deserved it because they pushed for it. They campaigned for the cuss out. They got elected and they earned the cuss out award. So I don't have to feel no ways bad about none of that shit. I'm not sitting here running around acting like I'm a Boy Scout and be an honest engine, but I try to be as real with myself and other people as I possibly can. And because I do that, I don't have a problem sleeping at night. I will go to fuck to sleep and not have nightmares, not be sitting up at night sad. Because as I told my mother, I'm not trying to die with regrets and a lot of goddamn guilt. I don't want it. I do not want to check out of this life holding on to a bunch of regrets about shit I didn't do, things I didn't say to people, things I didn't correct, and a lot of guilt because I never actually gave these people a decent hearing. I never forgave so and so for this shit. Look, man, I don't have that kind of time in life. I really don't. I'm gonna be 50 years old, and if I make it another 2 years or another year, I'll be 50 fucking years old. Life expectancy for a black man is what, 70 something? I do not want to spend the last 20 years of my goddamn life sitting here worried about some shit that happened back when I was fucking 15 and still expecting an apology for that shit. It's fucking stupid to me. It's stupid fucking thinking from people who will never apologize. I had to tell my mother that if my grandmother is 84 years old and you waiting for her to change and be a kinder, gentler, that ship has already fucking sailed. And you look like an idiot standing on the dock waiting for it to come back. Like, come on, man. No fucking way. It's gone. Fuck it. Forget about it. It's over. That person is not changing at this point. They got more time. They got more time behind them than they got in front of them. That shit is not happening. Forget it. Let it go. You're the one that needs to let it go. They are who they're going to be. Just like I have to accept that the person in front of me is who the fuck they are and going to be. And that is not changing. So I said to her the only thing I could say. I know how I need to move and how I'm going to move. And for me, I'm not trying to carry all that shit around. I'm not. I'm not trying to carry all the stress on my head. I'm not trying to carry all that burden on my heart. I'm not. It don't cost me shit to say I love somebody and put aside whatever petty beef we have to check on them and make sure they're okay. Even if they want to cuss me out, like you ain't about shit, you a motherfucker, whatever. Like, yeah, what is that gonna do for you? Yes, I am. And what does that do for you? You feel better? Make you feel like you better than me? Who gives a fuck? Now, do you want this bread and soup and this meal, or am I taking this shit to some bum somewhere? And you can sit your ass in here by yourself alone without it. I told my mother one of the realest things I ever have today, and I told her that one of the things I wanted, since we were talking about this whole thing about somebody passing and not leaving anybody anything, and they were out of it and weren't getting shit, and I told my mother I don't want shit, and I don't give a fuck. One thing I want is one thing that I cannot get. My family not to be so goddamn dysfunctional and act like we actually love each other. That's what I fucking want. And to see them band together as a fucking family. And I'm not gonna get that. But what I am gonna get is to watch all these people that I've known close around me dropping one after the other. And some of them possibly still dropping with all this fucking unresolved bullshit on their fucking heart, on their mind, keeping them from talking to each other. It's as simply as talking or checking on each other. It seems so pathetic. Seeing my grandmother, she was sad. My grandmother was sad. And I hated seeing her that way. And I told her, and I didn't tell my mother this, but I told my grandmother this. She's the strongest woman I knew. And I remember the first time I ever saw her cry. Ever. And I was going to see her youngest son in jail because I went with her. And I saw her fucking cry. Second time I saw her cry was tonight when I was over there taking care of some stuff for her on her house. And she was talking about her husband that passed and her aunt that passed. And thinking about that, taking it all in, sitting in the house by herself. She cried again. And I couldn't even really look at her. I focused on what I was doing. That's sad to me. She should not be there by herself. Being in her house and thinking of all the holidays and parties and stuff like that we had at that house, all the family being through there, it is absolutely, to me, just to me, it is absolutely a disgrace to see nobody really there continuously to help her. Even with her being difficult to deal with, where she want to cuss people out and be mad and shit like that. I told my mother, what the fuck she gonna do? That's all she got. At this age, that's all she got. You got two replaced knees, so she can't chase after your ass. She kind of walking hunched over now because she got a cane, so she can't be standing and swinging on you. What the fuck she got left but cussing at you? That ain't shit. Come on, man. Thought we was tougher skinned people than that. Fuck your cussing. Shut up. Come on, man. That's all she got left. Can't do shit to you. She fucking 84. What the fuck she gonna do to you? Harsh language? Come on, get the fuck out of here. That can't be it. But what I hear is fear. Fear of being vulnerable, fear of exposing yourself, fear of letting this pain that you've been holding for so long go because you don't know what the fuck you're going to be afterwards. And in some ways, it's just selfishness because you don't want to, because you want it to be about you. It's not your time. That's what I say to that kind of thinking. It's not your time yet. It's not. The elder still has the floor, and they are in more need. Now you can be mad about that shit all day long, but it don't change the fact that they are the elder, and you come second in that hierarchy. For my money, two of them need to be staying the fuck together. At least with two Canes in the house, they can defend something. So this is my family. These are the people who I was majority of the time raised by, because I was raised by a couple of different people. My foster mother, my cousins, my mother. And maybe I just see this shit differently. That I could look at all of this stuff and say to the at least one of the people who's ranting and raving about this shit that it's all dysfunction. It's all dysfunction. That's why I don't do it. Because if you know better, you do better. And regardless of what somebody in the family had to say behind your back or that was wrong or whatever, it's a dumb motherfucker who listens to that shit. Because if you ain't gonna talk to the person yourself and settle that issue, you like having the fucking issue. You do. You'd rather have the issue than have the resolution and have it not be a problem. I had to admonish my mother today on doing one thing, and it's one thing that annoys the shit out of me that I notice people will do. And I have a term for it, and it's called pumping negative into a void. And here's what it means, or here's an example of what it means. Have you ever proposed a situation to a person, or a situation presents itself, and all they come up with in 1.5 seconds is 30 different negative outcomes that can happen? All fear based ideas. Oh, this could happen. Somebody could run in there. Somebody could do this or whatever. Right? To me, that's called pumping negative into a void. The void being the unknown. You don't know what could happen. You don't know what could happen. It could be nothing. Nothing could happen. But that's not what they come up with. They come up with every fucking negative. And because they come up with every negative, they want to run that down to you as like this could happen and this could happen. This is somebody's probably going to do this. All this negative shit. I have no time for that. And I say I have no time for that, not because I'm always in a rush, even though I am. I say I have no time for that because I will not give it any time in my life to be listening to that shit. I can't. That's what that means. More time I spend dwelling on that shit is time I've lost out of my life. I could have been doing something actually fucking productive. So with my mother, I had to tell her that shit. because she started thinking of every negative scenario. And I had to tell her, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Don't pump no negative into no void. There is nothing there to be afraid of. And that's all that shit is to me. It's fucking fear. I fucking detest that shit. Bunch of irrational fucking fears. So shout out to Will Smith in the movie After Earth. But what is fear of what may or may not even possibly happen? And you have to realize it's going to sound fucked up, but a lot of these single women dwell in that place. Everything negative could happen all at the same time. As soon as there's an open. That is a really fucking stressful position to have yourself in. I saw my grandmother. She said something to the same effect, and I had to tell her the same shit. Don't pump negative into a void. Let it just be a void. You don't know what's going to happen. But why not assume the best? And I'm not saying I'm some sweetness in life, Mr. Positivity thing, but that's what these are the things, the tricks that I use on myself to keep myself from doing all this dysfunctional shit. I may have the same thought pattern, may think the same things, but I do not breathe it life in saying it out loud. I do not. It dies where it first sprouted from, in my mind. And in my actions, I put everything into the positive outcome that can happen because I have to consciously, motherfucking consciously think of the opposite scenario that would be the best outcome and work towards that one. Keep that one front of my mind and the negative one in the rear view mirror. It's not easy. But it is what I do. I seriously had to ask someone tonight. It's one of my new staff people that I have on. I had to really ask them tonight and felt almost stupid asking him because what he was proposing was really a benefit to himself and to the shop. But I really had to ask him on a serious face, why would you do this? And I had to say the words, why would you help me? And I felt so fucking ridiculous for saying this shit. But I had to know. And for a moment, it looked like the dude almost wanted to cry because it meant something to him. This endeavor meant something to him. Him seeing me step up to do something about keeping this place open meant something to him. And he felt that strongly about it that he's willing to do whatever he has to help. I was kind of thrown off by that shit. Because this ain't no brother. And I just wanted, that's that negative creeping. Like, it can't be because he's just a positive person or he wants to see this thing succeed. No, it can't be that. He got to be trying to scheme something on the back end. That's that negative into a void bullshit. That's that negative thinking. Why can't it be because he supports what you're doing? Why can't it just be that he believes in what you're doing? And like we talk about in the space all the time with women, they put their money behind shit that they support. Maybe it's just that. But no, I'm thinking this motherfucker trying to get over. He's trying to screw me in some kind of way. How is this going to blow back on me negatively? And understand, I'm not saying it's wrong to have those thoughts, but you can't let those be the dominant way that you decide to do anything because it's just fear based. It's all based on fear. Yeah, Dr. T, we are not. We are not. Especially brothers. We are not. That's such a sad fucking statement too. We are not used to getting support for shit. And I think that's why I empathize with my grandmother so much and really try to convince my mother about reaching out to her and burying that fucking hatchet because I had to tell my mother I remember being where I was in that low place alone and sad and just being fucking left there to languish and understanding that everybody don't make it out of there. Everybody don't make it out. And I'm not saying I completely came out unfucking scathed. I told you guys that what went into that thing is not what came out the other side. What came out the other side is what you see before you now. That is not what walked in that room. But this is what came out. And I can remember the things I lost. I can. And I can also remember the things I've gained. But it was not just easy to come by the shit. I can say that much. It wasn't a pleasure trip. It was not. And I think of somebody in their 80s having to go through that. I think of somebody like fucking Will Smith having to go through it. Kanye. Sense of theme here. I don't like seeing people get tortured like that and ostracized and just left to languish alone in their sadness and misery and people jumping on top of them and kicking more sand in on top. I don't like that. I won't do it. And if I can do anything, I will try to help them out of it. Because for me, I got lucky. Or I'm just that goddamn stubborn. Either way, everybody don't make it. And I want to see people make it. Minus whatever the fuck was going on. Here's the thing, Artie Edmore. You don't have to expect help. You don't have to expect help. But you do have to recognize it when you get it and accept it when it's offered. You do. And that's the hardest part. Accepting that you need it and it's okay to accept it. And it's not a weakness for you to accept help when you need it, even if you don't when it's offered. I'd say this that a lot of the shit that we think is weakness as black people is actually the strength. The weakness is in turning away from that shit. Because if you know anything about living through the looking glass, black folks in some ways do all the shit that we shouldn't do and it gives us all the shit that we don't want. And we act surprised. Oh, this is always so negative. Well, it's what the fuck you did. don't want an intact family, if you don't want to raise your kids worth of fuck, why do you get surprised when you don't have a fucking community? I got you, Artie Imore. Just let me know the time, and if I can make it, I'll be there. You have my pistol. You have my weapon. I don't know what it is. Just to me, this shit does not seem hard. It doesn't seem that damn hard. And maybe it's just because it's now. It doesn't seem that hard. Hardest part is getting people to actually do the easy thing, which is being honest with themselves. I don't want to talk to my mother because I'm still hurt. Saying that shit. Or I don't want to talk to her because I want her to suffer in retaliation for everything that I felt I had to go through when I was a child from her. I don't want her to have that help now. I want to be able to deny it from her. To me, that's fucking petty. Petty shit that should have been long since dropped and left. I told my mother I couldn't look at my grandmother tonight and not see my mother in 20 years and not knowing how fucking hurt in her heart she would be that her oldest child would not come see her because, well, you cussed at me. We had some words. You said some shit that wasn't true and hurt my feelings. Yeah, and probably say some more shit too. You either gonna accept that's the way I am and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about you, or you gonna take that shit all to heart and think I was exactly right about your ass. I'm more of the mind now to say fuck them people and whatever the hell they think. Because if they really think that shit about me, it's their fault for fucking having me. So I'm off the hook. Black man can never attain a level of peace. You can, Morpheus. You can. I believe you can. Because peace comes in little things. Talking to you guys or you folks, because there's some women in here. Talking to you folks right now is a way of peace for me. You can see my hands now. My hands are in like a meditating pose. I'm relaxed. I'm even. My mind is not racing. It may be jumbled and slow because I'm tired, but it just makes it fucking Thursday. Peace comes where you find it, just like laughter. Laughter is where you find it. Funny is where you find it. It has to be a part of you. I am a person who wants to be peaceful. That's why I attract so many chaotic fucking women towards me. I am peaceful. I am that respite. But I didn't get that way because I'm just running all over the place fucking crazy. No, I try to cultivate some kind of peace in myself. Clear mind, pure intentions, true words. All of that shit has to have an effect. Being in line with who the hell I am and accepting that and appreciating who I am, both good and bad, negative and positive. Because I have negative sides. I have negative fucking traits. Don't make no excuses about it. I damn sure do. And what? And that means what to you? I just don't let them try. I don't try to let them dominate me. I try to dominate them. Yeah. This probably would have been better off called a ramble, but I try to do better with reaching out to my grandmother. As I told my mother, I'd hate to find out that my grandmother died in that house by herself in the fucking dark because nobody was really checking on her. I'd hate to find that shit out. I really would. And that's not what I want to see happen with any elder in my fucking family. My grandmother, my uncles, my mother, none of them. And we ain't gotta be fucking close for me to give a fuck like that. We don't. We're family. That's as close. That's closer than most people will ever be. Blood family at that. No. I see it as dishonorable to let something like that happen and know, well, I'm just gonna sit off to the side because we had an argument. Man, that's all you can do, D Scott. That's all you can do. And do what I can do when I can do it. And if it ain't the best compared to somebody else, well, that's your fault for fucking comparing me to somebody else. I can only work with what I got. They can work with what the fuck they got. And it won't be the same. So that's it. I'm going to try to go ahead, take my ass in the house, get some sleep for a couple hours, and get back up and start all over again. At work, at the shop. I got my grandmother's house. Some work needs to get done on her house. Emergency work. And then I have all this other business stuff to do. But it is what it is. I'm not the patriarch. I just give a fuck about these people and wish they didn't have so much fucking dysfunction and could get along together for extended periods of time. So that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for coming through. This is my PMDM, my philosophy on people being left alone. Peace.